brother! Guys, over the past few weeks, HBO has been slowly dripping out more and more casting announcements for the new Harry Potter show coming out next year, and it has been so exciting and interesting to see who's going to be who.
Who are you?
And as you can imagine, being one of the largest Harry Potter channels out there, we have been inundated with requests to give our own reactions to these announcements. And since yesterday they dropped an additional 9 new characters, now I think is a good time to weigh in. But before we dive into our reactions, I do just want to take a moment to maybe set the tone, because however you might feel about this reboot, whether you're excited or skeptical or somewhere in between, we are choosing to come to this project with open hearts and a spirit of support. These actors, especially the kids, are stepping into some of the most iconic roles in all of pop culture history, and that's just no small task. And for many of them, this series is going to define their career for years, maybe decades to come. So let's just all remember the actors didn't make the decision about the reboot or to do it or whether it was a good idea or anything like that. They're just showing up to do the work and to bring the magic to life for a whole new generation, and they deserve our encouragement, not our cynicism. So we are here to celebrate their talent, cheer them on, and maybe, just maybe, fall in love with Hogwarts all over again. So bearing that in mind, let's dive on in. Okay, so right out of the gate, let's just hit the big one, because it is hands down the casting that has made the biggest waves, and that is Paapa Essiedu as Severus Snape. This is a really bold choice, and yeah, it's gotten a lot of pushback online, mostly because Paapa is black and Snape has, up to this point, always been portrayed as white. But here's the thing, I really don't think that matters at all. Because within Harry Potter, race, as we understand it, here in the real world, isn't the dividing line. The wizarding world has its own version of racism. It just doesn't look like ours. They've got entire magical species, house elves, giants, centaurs, goblins, who face systematic discrimination. And even amongst wizards, it's not about skin color, it's about blood status. That is the world the story engages with. So when you try to map real world racial dynamics onto this fictional system, it's not only unnecessary, it kind of misses the point, because the commentary on prejudice is already baked into that world, and fighting that prejudice is literally what Harry's entire story arc is about. And honestly, making Snape black actually underscores that these prejudices aren't based on race. He can still be the outsider, mistrusted, brooding, greasy-haired loner that everyone misunderstands, and that still works no matter his skin tone. Case in point, Blaise Zabini. Remember him? Well, if you don't, he is a Slytherin in Harry and Draco's year, and part of that whole gang with Pansy Parkinson and Crabbe and Goyle, and he is black. And even Draco, the most openly blood status obsessed bigot in the whole series, doesn't care because Blaise is pure blood. Actually, to that end, he might even be half-blood. We don't know about his dad, but he has pure blood beliefs, and that is what matters to Draco. It's almost like caring about blood status is stupid. I think what is actually throwing people off about this is that when HBO announced the reboot, they said they wanted it to be extremely book accurate, and then shortly after that, they revealed a casting that didn't perfectly match the physical descriptions from the books. Snape is described all the time as having greasy black hair, a hooked nose, and sallow skin. Which, not for nothing, sallow just means unhealthy looking skin. It doesn't have to be pale. So sure, I can see that might make some fans wonder, oh, okay, how accurate are we actually talking here? And I get that concern, book accuracy is something people are excited about, but the bottom line is this. From what I can tell, Paapa Essiedu is a phenomenal actor, and if he can deliver Snape's emotional complexity, his pain, his bitterness, his quiet nobility, his rage, the regret, then that is what matters. That's what fans will connect with. And the hair and the skin tone, that's just, it's window dressing, And really, if the series is going to succeed, it's going to have to bring, something new to the table. Like, I don't think we're here for Alan Rickman 2.0. Like, we already have that version. That version is great, but what Paapa brings is the potential for a fresh and thoughtful reinterpretation that still fits within the story we love. So yeah, I'm all in. Let the man cook. Okay, actually, you know what? I do have one concern. And that is that Snape is not supposed to be like a super attractive guy. And like, Paapa is like, I mean, like, you have eyes, right?
Do you have any idea how serious this is?
Next, we have John Lithgow as Albus Dumbledore.
Silence!
This is probably the other casting announcement that has turned the most heads thus far because, well, John isn't British, which was a hallmark requirement of the original Harry Potter movies, that like everyone had to be British. But naturally, as the first member of the cast who was announced and one of the most important characters, it got people's attention. But really, I am not too worried about this one. Like, usually when I think of John Lithgow, it has a lot more of his like comedy roles that come to mind, like Third Rock from the Sun or How I Met Your Mother or Shrek. But let me just say, the guy has range.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
If I had to guess, it's probably his portrayal of Winston Churchill on The Crown, which is responsible for this particular casting call, where, again, people were initially surprised by the casting, but he did end up winning an Emmy for that role and is now almost universally agreed upon as maybe the best portrayal of Churchill, like, ever?
Careful, Anthony. Too much excitement is not good for one so soon after an operation.
So, yes, I think he is very well suited to play a charming, humorous British leader of men, but what's tricky about Dumbledore is that he is also known for being very fearsome when the occasion calls for it. At that moment, Harry fully understood for the first time why people said Dumbledore was the only wizard Voldemort had ever feared. The look upon Dumbledore's face as he stared down at the unconscious form of Mad-Eye Moody was more terrible than Harry could have ever imagined. There was no benign smile upon Dumbledore's face, no twinkle in the eyes behind the spectacles. There was cold fury in every line of the ancient face. A sense of power radiated from Dumbledore, as though he were giving off burning heat. But to that end, if you ever watched Dexter and saw Lithgow as the Trinity Killer, which he ended up winning a Golden Globe for, you know he can switch from charming, polite, to menacing in the blink of an eye.
It's already over.
Now, obviously Dumbledore isn't a serial killer, but the point is he can look scary. And, also John Lithgow is like 6'4", which doesn't hurt because Dumbledore is like really tall, and I think that's really intimidating. So I think we're in good hands. Moving on, next we've got Nick Frost as Rubeus Hagrid.
Hello. Pub?
I don't have a ton to say here. I mean, I think he absolutely looks the part, but I haven't personally seen him in anything other than like Hot Fuzz back when I was in college. But if you don't want to go back that far, the great news is he's also going to be Gobber in the new How to Train Your Dragon movie. So you can actually go get a look at him this weekend or last weekend if this is the next weekend. And well, so it's just he's Gobber in the live action. Honestly, I think that movie looks so good.
What is that, son?
Next up, we've got Janet McTeer as Minerva McGonagall, or as I like to call her, McG.
I trust you don't need one to find your seats.
Goodness me, though, these first four really had the biggest shoes to fill, don't they? Like, they're all so perfectly cast the first time around.
Potter. It's good to see you.
So the main thing I know McTeer from, and I feel like this is going to be embarrassing in like 20 seconds, is her role as Helen Pierce in Ozark, show I think everyone should watch because it is also so good. But in that, she plays the lawyer of a cartel drug lord, the show's main antagonist, unless you think the main antagonist is Wendy, which, let's talk, because I might agree with you.
I am so sorry that you are in this mess.
And I know lawyer for the cartel sounds like the exact opposite of McG.
When something happens, it is always you three.
But if you want to see McTeer be a strict, commanding, no-nonsense presence, then look no further because she absolutely owns whatever room she is in that show, and I think she is going to crush it as McGonagall. Also, not for nothing, but like she might never sleep. I mean, look at her acting credits. She's been active on stage, TV, and film every year since 1984. Like, jeez. She's won a Golden Globe for Best Actress, a Tony for Best Actress, an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress, and, this is kind of funny, won an Emmy for her portrayal of Clementine Churchill, Winston's wife. Ha! Who better than to play Dumbledore's right hand, McG? Moving on, we've got Paul Whitehouse as Argus Filch. Again, I don't have a ton to say about him because I'm not super familiar with his work, although almost all of his awards look like they are honors to do with British comedy, which makes me think that once again, they're going to be playing this character for laughs.
Students in the corridor!
They are supposed to be out of bed, you blithering idiot.
Which personally, I think probably a pretty good call because it's actually not like that in the book so much, but it does offer some good comic relief in the movies.
We'll find you hanging by your thumbs in the dungeons. God, I'll miss the screaming. You've murdered my cat. Oh dear, we are in trouble.
But otherwise, the fun fact about him is that he's actually returning to the world of Harry Potter, having played, wait for it, Sir Cadogan in Prisoner of Azkaban the first time around. And personally, I think it would be hilarious if he reprised that when the time comes, just like as a little Easter egg. I guess he's really just sort of like flailing a sword around there in the background, but that's it. Then, as our first annual bad guy, we've got Luke Fallon playing Queerness Quirrell.
Thought you ought to know.
Luke appears to be a relatively newcomer to acting, having only started in 2018, but what I like is that the actor's only 29, and if you do the math, Quirrell can only be like 24 at his youngest, and is probably only a little bit older than that, so they're definitely going for a younger, more age-accurate casting, which I appreciate because it's so easy to forget how young the characters were when everything happened. Like every time Harry sees his parents in the movies, they look like they're in their mid-30s or early 40s or something, but they died when they were only 21. They should look very young. But hey, speaking of Harry, next let's talk about the Golden Trio, who were all announced together last week. We've got Dominic McLaughlin as Harry, Arabella Stanton as Hermione, and Alastair Stout as Ron Weasley. All I can say is 10 out of 10. I think they all look so perfect, and how could they not be Gryffindors? I mean, what other kind of person could have the courage to step into such mighty roles? I swear, if I hear any trash about these kids, I'm gonna lose it, because like, however you feel about Harry Potter or this show, this is still a huge deal for them. We should be nothing but happy for them and just, pray they have the resources they need to cope with the future that awaits them. Godspeed. Actually, on that note, let's also talk about the other 4 confirmed classmates of Harry. We've got Lox Pratt as Draco Malfoy, Leo Early as Seamus Finnegan, Alessia Leone as Parvati Patil, and Sienna Musa as Lavender Brown. Again, I think they all look great, and I think point to one big advantage the show has over the movie, which is that from the beginning, all of the books are out. Like when they were making the movies, they started coming out before the end of the series, meaning that as they cast background characters, they didn't know if they would go on to be important. So in the movies, you have characters like Seamus and Dean and Neville who are the same all the way through, but then you have Parvati and Lavender who each got some recasts as the series went on. But now we know, for example, that like this little girl is going to be Ron's obsessive girlfriend. That's fun, and they can maybe like start setting that sort of stuff up earlier. Like maybe when Half-Blood Prince rolls around, we'll just already be familiar with Lavender rather than being like, oh, who's this girl, I guess? Sure, I guess she's into Ron now. Keep in the heart though. Just do it, run it back, run it back. What's also really curious for Alessia Leone as Parvati is that Parvati has an identical twin sister, Padma, in the books, who eventually is Ron's Yule Ball date. Now, in the movies, the Patil twins are portrayed as fraternal rather than identical, and both are sorted into Gryffindor rather than being split with Parvati in Gryffindor and Padma in Ravenclaw like they are supposed to be.
Hi, Harry.
And as far as I know, Alessia is not a twin. That would be a fun twist, but I'm curious how they're going to handle that. Like, will they parent trap it and have her just play both roles, or just stick with the fraternal thing and cast a whole second girl? Gonna be very interesting to see, but no matter what, Padma needs to be in Ravenclaw, though, I'll tell you that. They should just, show us more of the sorting ceremony, Show them going separate ways, because that says stuff about the Sorting Hat too. Then next up we have Johnny Flynn as Lucius Malfoy, and I don't know a ton about him either. I mean, he looks right for the part. Certainly like he could be Lox's dad, but fun fact, he's the brother of Jerome Flynn. You may remember him as Braun. Game of Thrones.
And here we have Bronn, son of...
You wouldn't know him.
But again, I like that they seem to have aged down Lucius Malfoy some to be more in line with the books. But perhaps most interesting about this casting is that Lucius isn't in the first book, like at all. But that's also pretty exciting because this casting then suggests we might get to see some additional scenes that are not in the books. Like maybe we get to see Lucius talking to Draco before he leaves for Hogwarts or something, telling him like, you need to befriend Harry Potter because he might be the next Dark Lord or something like that, you know? Like it would be so cool if we got like more of Malfoy's home dynamic. We never really get to see any of that. That's the kind of stuff I want to see in the show. But, you know, who knows? Maybe they just need him cast for something as small as like standing next to Draco on the platform before he gets on the train for school, or, you know, being in a photo in a newspaper or something, like just setting him up for season 2 so he doesn't come out of nowhere. Same could also be said for our next casting, Bertie Carvel as Cornelius Fudge. Again, Fudge is only mentioned by name in the first book and doesn't make an appearance at all until Chamber of Secrets when he's escorting Hagrid away from the school, but his role isn't really needed that much in the first book, so I'm curious like how he's gonna fit in here. Feels like it's probably another world building thing so that he's not just introduced at random. Like maybe you see him on a newspaper saying that you know who is gone, or Harry Potter defeated him, or maybe it's an announcement that Gringotts got broken into. Who knows? I'll tell you what though, my real concern with Fudge is this, you guys. Are you ready? You ready? Pin-striped suit. Lime, green, bowler hat. Don't mess it up. They're not gonna do it. They're not gonna commit.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
He's supposed to look ridiculous. Moving on, we have Katherine Parkinson as Molly Weasley, which I think is wonderful casting. If you've ever seen the IT Crowd, you know this is gonna be amazing.
Jen, what about you?
Shoes.
What?
Shoes. What? Shoes.
For Molly, she is so funny, and she only has a small role in the first book, usually like just getting the kids onto the train, but obviously becomes a much bigger player later on.
Ronald Weasley!
And that just leaves us with the Dursley family, where we have Belle Powley as Petunia and Daniel Rigby as Vernon, and no word on Dudders yet, but the main reaction I've seen online to Belle and Daniel is that it was a wild choice to go and make the Dursleys hot. But I mean, come on, you guys, what does that mean you're saying about Fiona Shaw and Richard Griffiths over here, huh? Huh? Well, I won't stand for it. You know what we need here?
Justice.
Exactly, Vernon. Exactly. No, but don't worry, I'm sure they will look fine in just the part of the overbearing Dursleys once they get all made up and in costume and stuff. And I know I keep saying it, but again, I'm really happy that they have aged down the characters. Like, Vernon and Petunia should really only be in like their early 30s, but like in the first go around with the movies, Fiona Shaw was 43 and Richard Griffith was 53 at the time of filming, whereas Belle is now 33 and Daniel is 42. So they've scaled each of them back 10 years. But there you go, that's my initial reaction to all the early casting from Harry Potter. I'm sure we'll be getting a lot more in the weeks to come. I'm still very curious, especially about Lord Voldemort. Like, who do you guys think should play him? I know like Cillian Murphy is the rumor for consideration, but like, how do you think that would go? And just final reminder, let's everyone just try and keep it very cool in the comments. Like, I know everyone's very invested in Harry Potter, but that's sort of the message at the end of the day, right? Like, we all like Harry Potter, so just remember that. And hey, you guys, as long as we're talking about going back through the Harry Potter series, I would recommend you check out our podcast, Through the Gryffindor. Ben and I are doing a chapter-by-chapter breakthrough of the entire series. We are presently approaching the end of Goblet of Fire, but you can click right here to start way back at the beginning at The Boy Who Lived in Philosopher's Stone. It has been an absolute blast. That podcast is actually going on tour later this year. Hope to see you out there, Midwest. But otherwise, until next time, Ben, I will see you in another life.